Welcome to another edition of Real Talk with Chris and Ross, episode number 15. We're excited to have this podcast. For those who don't know, if this is your first time on listening to us, Ross and Chris here with EXP Team Freedom. We're super excited. Combined together, we have almost 30 years in the real estate industry. We're excited. This podcast is designed ultimately for real estate people because we both are realtors. But we like to target our audience to anybody that honestly has an entrepreneur bone in their body, right? Somebody who wants to think forward, big visionary, because Ross and I both think that way. Ross is out in Michigan. I'm out in California. So we're excited to our Real Talk with Chris and Ross, episode number 15. Thanks for joining us. What's up, Ross, my friend? How are you today?
Hey, man, I'm doing incredible. The sun's out here, so, that's always a good thing up here in Michigan. The market's kind of picking up as well and feeling pretty good. What about you, man? How are you?
Same here. The reality, though, the sun out in the wintertime in California sometimes is deceiving. The sun's out, but it's still like 38 degrees. So you go out. Nonetheless, we've had obviously a big spell of rain. More than we've had in probably 2 decades. So,
wow.
Yeah,
now
definitely good for that.
Do you get a lot of snow where you're at? Or no? Is that more north?
It's more up north. Yeah, like Tahoe area. If I go where I'm at, we're in the foothills. I live in Auburn specifically, if you want to get real technical. Auburn's in the foothills, kind of by Meadow Vista and stuff like that, which is right outside of Sacramento and Roseville. Heading up Highway 80, going towards Tahoe and Truckee. So, yeah, it does. But we were having this conversation the other day that it's been colder than usual. It really has been this cold. We go out, it's like 28 degrees for us, which for us, that's cold. I know Michigan, you guys are like -6 kind of stuff. But that's normal for you guys, right?
Yeah, but when you're used to 70 and 80 and all that other stuff, it goes down to below 50, man. You're feeling it, right?
Oh, right. I like it. And you guys still haven't got any snow out there yet, right? Like you're mentioning.
We did. We started to pick up. Yeah, we're at the ski hill now. We're good to go. Yeah, living in Michigan makes sense again.
Like, where am I at right now? Hey, I feel like across the board, everywhere is having some challenges and changes in the demographic of rain and their weather patterns, like Hawaii, everything. So whatever. Who knows, right?
There's your weather report, guys, if you wanted one. You got it from California to Michigan. Here you go.
There you go. You're right. And everything in between. You're good. Just wear a jacket, a ski suit, goggles, beanie. You're good. Awesome. Yeah. Well, anyways, let's kick this thing off today. I think we kind of talked beforehand, and you kind of wanted to do a quick little interview of myself. I don't think I've ever really interviewed myself on this channel. So
awesome.
I think
it would be great.
Yeah. So
give the listeners a little insight.
Yeah, I guess they always don't know who Chris. I always start out with Chris, A.K.A. the Japanese Cowboy. And people are like, who's that guy, right? So, yeah.
Can I ask you how you came up with that nickname? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
Absolutely. So it's ironic. Well, I might as well just jump into some of my story then, because kind of understand that, I have to kind of tell you where it came from. And so I was born and raised in the Central Valley of California. I call it the armpit. There's nothing but cowboys out there. When I grew up in there, it was everywhere you could look for miles were dairy farms, Portuguese dairy farmers. That's all we were out there.
Wow.
And so I actually ended up going to a school, which was about 8 miles east of Turlock, and it was called Denair. And wow. Denair was this little tumbleweed town, man. It literally, if you drove through and blinked your eyes, you'd miss it. Yeah, we're talking Wrangler jeans, cowboy boots, cowboy hats, 4-wheel drives, the skull tobacco in your back pocket kind of thing, right?
Love that.
Right? I was probably I was the darkest thing in that entire school, in that fucking lot. So, yeah. But so I grew up in there. I did FFA, that kind of stuff, right? Future Farmers of America. You probably know about that. I raced cows.
Kidding.
Slaughtered pigs. We did the whole gamut, man. I was like,
wow.
I was knee deep.
You lived the life too, then. So you were all in.
I was, we did some of that out there, and I loved country music. It kind of came with the territory because everybody was listening to country music out there, right? And so,
by the way, do you like Zach Bryan right now? Are you
Zach? Okay. Zach, absolutely. Zach Brown Band is amazing. I love those guys.
Love that.
You get accustomed to your environment like anything else in life, right? And so I got really used to country music, and I grew up. And to this day, I still actually really love country music. It's ironic. So anyways, fast forward, and I played country music, love country music, and everybody started calling me first the Asian cowboy. I was like, you know what, that's cool, but let's get specific. I'm that guy. Let's do the details. I don't believe every nationality is like Asians, so many different diversifications, right?
For sure. Yeah.
And I'm like, and I'm kind of biased to the fact to say that the Japanese culture, and for you that may be listening, I'm not here to offend anybody, but I do believe the Japanese culture ideally is the highest ranked in the level of hierarchy in the Asian culture. And maybe because I'm Japanese too, part. So I was like, you know what? Let's be, real technical. I was like, let's just call me the Japanese Cowboy since I'm Japanese. And they're like, all right, fair enough. Well, it started off as a joke. It really did start off as a joke.
Now, is this like, it's just so for the listeners, are we talking like high school or are we talking after high
Oh,
school?
after high school. Yeah. I didn't really even do
Okay.
it, to be honest. Yeah. That's
Got
all
it.
maybe at that point. I mean, yeah, but this was later on in my years actually here when I got here to this
Oh, okay.
area. Yeah. And so like, all right, Japanese Cowboy. So it was a joke. Everybody started calling me the Japanese Cowboy, and it kind of stuck. And then it became a tagline. And then I started using it for marketing. And all of a sudden now everybody, I mean, I could be anywhere. I've been in different places and different airports across the country, and ran into somebody like, "Oh my God, you're the Japanese Cowboy guy." I'm like,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So yeah. Anyways, what started off as a joke has turned into a marketing spill.
Heck yeah.
And so I run with it. Everybody's like the Japanese Cowboy. So
For
yeah.
sure, yeah, for sure. At first, my assumption right off the get was, oh, maybe he's kind of got that rebelistic, rough edge cowboy wits about him. But that now that you break it down to that, this is actually your roots, where you grew up and what you actually did as you were growing up. I mean, that's really cool, man. So, what was your favorite thing about the farm life back in the day? Just out of
Nothing at all.
curiosity.
Nothing at
Not
all.
really.
No, I'm not. I would never go back to that again. I mean, I'm not the guy who wants to wake up in Yellowstone on Dutton Ranch to crack of dawn and jump on horses and ride out. I'm good. I'll get on the motorcycle or the quad and meet
That's
you.
awesome.
Yeah. So
Heck
no,
yeah.
none of that instilled in me at all to this day as far as that life.
For sure. Okay, so then to paint the picture though, so you grew up from that, you obviously saw that through, right? You went through school, obviously you said you went up to Sacramento area. Is this when did you just jump right into real estate? Did you, seek out real estate? How did that happen?
That's another really long Oprah story, but it's funny. I to really again take it back. I didn't really even do high school. I got out of high school because I actually had to go work full time at the time. My family environment growing up was not the ideal scenario. I would say picture perfect for you to think that I was going to turn out amazing. You got a story.
For
We
sure.
interviewed you, right? Everybody's got a story. So yeah, I actually ended up moving to Sacramento when I was 19, and I got married at 19.
No
Crazy, crazy, dumb, and young. But that was probably the least of dumb things I probably did, honestly. But I got married, did that whole thing, had a kid at a young age. That's why my oldest son's 30 at this point
That's
in my life.
awesome.
And but my whole background was construction. Honestly, that's where it was from. My brother was a general contractor actually in the Bay Area, and we did a lot of construction work. That's all I did because I started working like at 15, and I had to figure out how to survive and pay and live, right? Which normal 15-year-old kids were still riding BMX bikes and going out on Saturday and having fun, and I was actually working full time and paying taxes, right? Like that kind of stuff, that kind of environment. And so
that's awesome.
It is, it makes you grow up probably.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's awesome to hear that from you though, because it does kind of attribute to like, watching you grow and always looking for, the next thing. And, even prior to our conversation, when we jump on, when you're talking about how you're grinding it out, you're pushing up trying to get to that next level and build great things. I mean, that probably stems from a lot of that, of growing up that way, right? I mean, you're always pushing in that effort, putting in the effort.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it was always like, I always look at it and atone it to survival, honestly. And I don't know if that's always the best fuel. Survival could be a double-edged sword, right? The need to survive. Our brain naturally instinct is to survive, right? So instinctually, that's its job. But so there's levels of that come from working from a place of survival versus like abundance or obsessiveness or relentless. I mean, I think those words kind of come to survival because you have to be relentless when you need to survive. Like when you need to eat some food and you're starving, you're relentless at finding something to eat, right?
That's right.
So it all plays into the picture, but it has changed the dynamic of myself, which I'll get into a little bit later in my later years. But I did construction for years, and the reality is I realized that that's not something I want to do my rest of my life, And here's the irony. I don't know if you believe or those who are listening believe in the law of attraction. What you think about comes about. What you focus on expands.
Huge believer.
Huge believer, right? And that's what makes the universe turn. And I'm 100,000% believer in it. And so when I was younger, we were working in the Bay Area. There's a place out there called Black Hawk. For those who are listening, it's Bay Area of California. It's a very high-end area. In fact, John Madden had a house there.
Wow.
Just to let you know, John Madden had a house in Black Hawk. And to set the caliber of what that looks like. And I was working on a house for a guy in there. His name was Frank. And Frank used to come to work and leave work every day. He had his 8,000 square foot home. His wife looked like Barbie. And, he drove a brand new BMW 7 Series. He'd leave in a black 3-piece suit. He'd come home in a black 3-piece suit, kind of like your story with the guys at the suit store, right?
Yeah.
Frank would come back every day from work. And it was one Friday I was working. It was like 100 degrees out there in a summer day. I was digging trenches in his front yard because we were laying conduit for some stuff. And when you spend a lot of time at these people's houses, you start to create a relationship with them, right?
Oh, yeah.
How funny that is. And so they were nice. And I always asked Frank, what do you do for a living, man? What is it that you do, brother? Because I see you come and go in this car, these suits, like you got this house. And he's like, I'm a mortgage broker. And I'm like, huh, what's that? And he's like, and he starts telling me, right? And honestly, it went in one ear, not the other. I didn't hear one word he really said. I was just visualizing his car, his suit, his house, his wife. I mean, I'm like, wow, I want all that. I really did. Like, that's what I want to see, right? And so that kind of stuck with me. But the truth is, I really didn't intentionally. I don't feel like I intentionally did things to maneuver myself like a chessboard to put myself into that position consciously.
Yeah. It was like a seed that was planted.
And I just continue to live my life, right? And as I fast forward, a lot of different things that happened in my life. I ended up getting injured on the job, and I couldn't do anywhere work physically. So they actually put me in a temp job, and they put me in a desk job. And I was like, oh. So my first job ever where I could actually go to work clean and come home clean. I could go into an office environment where if it's cold outside, the heater's on. If it was warm outside, the AC's on. It's like, climate control. This is kind of cool. I could dig this, right? Like I've been out swinging hammers and digging asphalt for years, like in the heat, regardless of elements. So I'm like, all right, I could do this. And so I did that. And I was kind of like, all right, I need to get to this point. This is where I need to be at. I need to be in this kind of environment. And so I just kind of, again, relationship after relationship, I met this person, this girl there that worked with me. And first place I was actually working, I was selling drugs. And not like in a bad way. I was actually selling drugs, pharmaceutical drugs to elderly people. People was like, drugs. Yeah, I was.
The Japanese Cowboy has a story, folks.
It goes on and on. On every corner, there's something. No, but I mean, it was pharmaceutical drugs. So we were selling them like a 90-day supply of pharmaceutical drugs that they were getting, from their doctor, right? But they do it over the phone. So we had a headset. I sat behind a cubicle desk. I would take phone calls, all of that was my job. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. So I met this girl there. Her name is Sandra, a good friend of mine. And one day she's like, yeah, for lunch, I'm going to go. I'm going to do this interview for my friends selling cell phones. At the time, cell phones weren't really a thing back then.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
And he's like, they're selling cell phones. They're making a ton of money. All right, cool. She goes, you should come with me at lunch. Come on, let's go. So I'm like, all right, cool. I've always been that way. Okay, cool, let's go. I'm down. I'm a road dog. I roll. So I went to lunch, this interview, and it actually was for a job at the time. It wasn't called Verizon. It was AirTouch Cellular.
Okay.
Verizon bought AirTouch Cellular back then.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
So went there, did this little interview with a group interview, and lo and behold, they're like, okay, everybody here, you're all hired if you want to come. And you get a base salary and you get commission sales, so you can sell and make money. I'm like, oh, I can make money selling. So I got there, started selling cell phones. And this is like big, huge brick phones and pager type stuff. It wasn't like their smart iPhone today. There was no such thing. And so it was, new to the industry. And not every kid had one either. It was either like a businessman or somebody of that nature, a doctor that had a pager. It wasn't everybody and their mom that had a phone.
Was it door-to-door sales, or was it like business B2B? Or did people come to you?
No, it was telesales. So I again sat in a desk and the phone got inbound calls all day long. So I put a headset on, right? And all of a sudden I hear a ding. Somebody's on, oh, I can help you. And it was that, right? So they just came bouncing all day long.
Wow. Okay.
And so I'm like, all right, cool. Well, you know what? I actually started making a lot of money. I was making like $6,000 to $8,000 a month. And for me, that was like, holy crap, that's a lot. That's like almost $100,000.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing is sitting in this chair in an air-conditioned room with a headset on, and I get 2 lunches or lunch and 2 breaks. Wow, I never got that before, right? So,
yeah.
anyways,
The mindset is starting to change, right? Because you're going from working outside all day to then getting into the office to then being open-minded to go to the cell phone route. Now you're doubling your income maybe at this point. Now you're breaking these barriers.
Yeah, and all along the way, when I really step back and I look back at this timeline and journey, I didn't realize it, but I actually was climbing this ladder towards Frank, you know? And so, ironically, there's a guy that sat on the other side of my desk every day during lunch. He's eating pizza and he's taking his real estate course. I'm like, what are you doing, bro? He's like, oh, I'm studying for a real estate exam. Well, what's that? Oh, I want to be a realtor. I'm like, well, what's that? He's like, oh, I'm like, okay, cool. Sat down. Because at the time, right, it's never important until it is important.
Correct.
And I was like, I'm making 6 to 8 grand a month. I'm cool. I'm totally comfortable. I'm good. Like nothing can be better right now to me. Like you couldn't present anything better to me, right?
You're almost looking at him like, are you crazy, man? Do you see the money that's coming in from the lines right now? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Right?
It was like, you got it made here, you know, and there were some people making $10,000 to $12,000 a month on selling cell phones. Like, okay, wow. So I was like, okay, cool. And so funny story about him, I'll tell you later down the road. But so then I ended up had another good friend, and his name was Tony, that sat down like 4 seats from me at my desk. And he one day comes to lunch, says, "Hey man, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go start doing these loans." And I'm like, loans? What loans? And he's like, oh, this mortgage company, we're start doing loans. These guys are making a ton of money. I'm like, okay, cool. Hey, good luck. Well, he leaves, right? And it happens to be almost, I'd say almost a year later. It's crazy. Okay. I literally was gonna go on a Friday night out to happy hour with a buddy of mine named Tony, another Tony. Law of attraction again. The universe works in mysterious ways.
That's right.
So I call and dial up Tony just to confirm that we're still meeting for happy hour.
Yeah.
And it's Chris. I just want to let you know, are we still on? He's like, Chris who? I'm like, Chris Okamura. Who is this? He says, it's Tony. I'm like, Tony? And he goes, oh my God, Chris, Verizon. Oh, instantly. We hadn't talked in a year.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God, you took off and went and did loans. That's right. I'm like, how you doing, brother? Like, I dialed the wrong Tony. My bad. I'm actually looking for their Tony. But hey, how you doing, by the way? He goes, oh my God, you would not believe it, brother. I made $20,000 last month.
Wow.
I'm like, shut that up. And he's like, no, I did. He says, you should come for an interview. I'm going to tell my boss that I want to interview. Come Monday at lunch. I'm like, all right. Again, all right, cool.
Always open-minded.
Always open-minded, always. So Monday, I take off from my job at lunch, and I go meet him and his boss. Man, walk into a straight boiler room with Vin Diesel, bro.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, holy shit. Walk in there, these guys are dialing for dollars on the phone, man, and they're just doing all these mortgage stuff. And the manager's like, asking me a series of questions and things. Like, he's like, okay, you start tomorrow.
Wow.
I'm like, I'm on my lunch break. I can't start tomorrow. I was like, I got to go back and give 2 weeks notice at least. That's like the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay. Then he just proceeds to hard sell me. He's like, cool, I get it. Not everybody's ready for this kind of money.
Oh,
so
man.
Obviously, when you're ready for that kind of money, let me know. And he says, hey, Tony, go over there at your desk and grab your check. And my buddy Tony actually had taken the check for $20,000 and he put it in a frame. He says, hey, oh, here it is. Boom. Sure as shit. There was a check for $20,000. I'm like, oh my God. Little did I realize that guy's a great salesman.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, he's like, so I guess you're just not ready. I'm like, oh, the hell you say? I was like, no. I was like, cool. I'll be here Monday, buddy. I'll be here tomorrow. He's like, okay. I literally went back to lunch, my lunch break, handed my supervisor my keys, my badge, and says, here we go. I'm done. She says, what? You just went to lunch. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I got to go do this thing. I got to do it.
So your intuition felt right, though. It was that and a combination of just like seeing that check and all the emotions, because, man, to walk away from that security of that much money, right? You had to have some radical belief that this was going to work for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's some intuition to me there of belief, but I think more importantly, to be quite transparent, it was a $20,000 check. Like that's got to be mine. That's what's still the deal. I was like, okay, that's real. And I think everybody's looking for real. Like if it's real and tangible, it's like I can touch it, then your belief system increases.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's that ability to say like, oh, you could have this or you could have that if you do that. Well, here you go. I just got it. Here it is. The 4-minute mile, right? Everybody thought it was unbelievable until one person did it. Okay. So yeah, I jump over there, had zero clue what I was doing, bro. Zero clue. And he hands me a legal pad and a pen and says, go sit with that guy over there, put headphones on and listen for the whole entire day. Tomorrow, you're on the phones.
Wow.
Okay. I don't even know what an arm is. Like, what's the arm? What's a mortgage? What is that? I don't know what that, right? That's where I was at. And so sat there for the whole entire day, man, for 12 hours on the phone with him, just listening to his cone, like over and over and over and over and over. Next day I got on the phone and just started doing it, and within, I'd say the first 2 months, I had made more money than I ever made in my entire life there.
Wow. Okay. So it worked. You connected the dots.
Well, thank God it worked. Yeah. But it really wasn't hard. I finally realized that my superpower is the fact that I actually can talk on the phone. I'm great at swinging a hammer and building shit, but boy, I'm really good at talking. And now, as you know, today, I have a diarrhea of the mouth. I probably can talk for days. So
I disagree, but I love it.
It's a double-edged sword.
I think you do just fine.
So yeah, I mean, it was. I found this new superpower, so to speak, right? Like the superpower that I have the ability to go basically use my voice and just talk and sell stuff to people. I mean, I was selling on the cell phone sector for sure. But then I come over here, like now we're talking apples and oranges, though. We're talking, okay, yeah, I can make a $200 spiff on selling a cell phone, or I could make 20 grand for doing 3 or 4 refis. All right, that just seemed like a better deal.
Yeah.
So interesting enough, though, as you're hearing my story, you notice I have now ventured into the world of Frank. I just didn't realize it.
Yeah, because you're, technically as you move on, you became a realtor, right? So to see this avenue is kind of different and also makes sense. Like what you're saying, you were really following unconsciously. You just made it there. Law of attraction, right?
That, and I believe that 1,000% the universe opens doors for you all the time. And that's where people talk about, you're lucky. You're lucky. Oh, you're so lucky. No, that's, preparation meets opportunity is the definition of luck. And opportunities will arise in front of everybody that's listening on this call right now. You just decide whether you want to notice them or not, or whether you just want to be open-minded and go for it, right? There really is no other option because you have zero things to lose by trying something, at least trying it. If you fail, at least you tried.
Now, I want to open that up a little bit, though, because there's a lot of stuff that you're touching on here that I think is so powerful. And when you first started your story and you were talking about how you started off working and you were just running and gunning even at a young age. And I said, well, man, that's awesome. Now, first you're like, yeah, it's kind of awesome. But then my perception of that is it is awesome to see you go from your story of where you were to where you are today and how you broke past all these individual barriers of mindset changes to get there. What would you say to when you were going through that process? And maybe you didn't have it at the time. Maybe you were just kind of going with the flow. But what could someone, that is kind of in those transitional periods really start to focus on and or be open to, or maybe like a simple trick to help them kind of unlock those barriers? Because how many times do we hear people, yeah, I was, waiting tables for 25 years, then in, management at the restaurant, didn't even know there was this opportunity of change, or, how did you go from, working, building and doing those components, being out in the elements, working on, construction, then going from there, like to break your mindset? Like, yes, you were always open, but was there ever something, were you reading books? Were you always like seeking more knowledge to get there? Or was it just kind of an ebb and flow of your life?
No, I mean, honestly, at that point, I was not reading any books at all, to be totally honest. No, that wasn't even in my agenda. I read more books in this latter part of my life than I've ever read in my entire life. In fact, if I'm completely honest, I think I read one book even through all of my grades of school. It was the Houseboat Mystery Book, and I wrote a book report in that book like 8 times in a row. It was like the
Wow.
only book I read. That's how bad I was on a level of like scholastically speaking.
Mm.
Um, to be honest, that I think survival. Survival makes you have. It's the only thing I can go back to because the place in my life where I was at, I really had no real direction, consciously direction. Like, okay, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to finish and graduate and go to college for 4 years. My degree is going to be in this. It's like you actually consciously plan that out. I had zero conscious plan in my life other than I just got to figure out how to survive. Now, I will add to that that's not a place that I would tell people to be in. That's not like a healthy place to be in because there's a lot of other things to this picture that I don't speak about that wasn't very congruent with a positive lifestyle, right? Because survival makes people do crazy things. It's been proven, right? You see people when it comes to the level of survival, it's survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
So my ability to subconsciously push me through every one of these elements in different pieces and blocks of my life was purely off the fact that I just wanted to freaking survive. I wanted something better. I had no idea what it was. All I had in my mind, the only thought in my mind I could even depict or go back to was Frank. That's the crazy part. One guy in my mind was the only positive influence in my mind that I could affix on subconsciously that gives me even that level. Because I'll be honest, I think about this, Ross.
Yeah.
If I didn't ever go through that experience of doing Frank's house and meeting Frank and seeing all that I saw, I don't know if I'd be here today.
That's powerful.
It's like, right? It's that one seed of that one thing that stuck in my mind. Because if you really want to play back my whole entire reel, nothing prior to me understanding and seeing Frank was even close remotely to being positive to like, hey, Chris, you should do good things with your life. You should be a real good influence on people. No, it was worse. It was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah.
So, again, choices. We all got them.
That's right. That's right.
And I just made different ones. And so here we are with that. I got into doing the loans. And then ironically, the same Tony that got me into the loans one day at break says, I'm out of here, dude. I'm leaving. I'm like, oh, you lost your mind? What? He's like, yeah, I'm going to go into the brokerage world. We were working for a direct lender.
Okay.
He says, yeah. I'm like, well, what's that? What's that? He says, well, I don't know. I'm learning a little bit about it, but all I know is that I actually have a chance to shop the rate. I can shop at different places, so I get more options. And I can get paid in the front and the back, so I can make more money. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go do that. I'm like, cool. Let me know how it goes. 6 months, he calls me. He's like, bro, just destroying what we were doing here. This is crazy. I'm like, okay, where do I go? And so I followed him. We went there, right?
Awesome.
And I started my life into a brokerage world. So I did that for several years, and it was very lucrative. Made great money at it. Created a whole other lifestyle that I had never had before. And then here's another piece that's the universe talking. Because again, if I want to go back and talk about Frank, who was a mortgage broker, he owned his own company, and he had that lifestyle. I was like, and I obviously was already in the mortgage world. I mean, right? I was in the mortgage world. I was doing mortgages. I was working for somebody doing mortgages. I hadn't yet reached the level of Frank, but I definitely was doing mortgages. So I enhanced my life for sure, 1,000% from digging trenches.
1,000%.
So the next step was I was actually working out at 24-hour fitness a lot. I was working out a lot. When you're younger, you do that. When you're older, you stop. So, I used to really take the 24-hour fitness thing to the furthest level. And then I was out there working out like around 11 o'clock at night one night. And I ran into a buddy of mine that actually I sold cell phones back at that same place that before.
No kidding.
And it was a young guy, a young cat. He was like 18, 19 years old. And he's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you. It had been probably close to 10 years that I had not seen him.
Wow. And you still recognized him. Yeah. That's impressive. Yeah.
So like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, man, he says, what are you doing? I'm like, I've been doing loans. this whole time. He goes, oh my God. He goes, well, I've been selling real estate because I'm over at Remax. I'm like,
Okay.
Cool. He's like, hey, we should go grab lunch sometime and catch up. I'm like, yeah, sounds good. So we actually did follow through. In about a week or two, we got together and we went and grabbed lunch, right? And he's like, you know what? We should go do our own thing. Like, I've been doing real estate for this long. You've been doing more. You know what we're doing. He says, let's go do our own spot. I'm like, okay, let's go give it a shot. So that was in 2000. It was in 2000. We went and we opened up our own spot. Just me and him. He was the real estate side. I was the mortgage side. We hired 3 basically they were like telephone operator, telesales people, and the dialers. And back then we used to get like bookloads of title leads for free, like droves of title leads. Like title reps were giving us those things like hot off the press. There were binders and binders and binders of them, right? And so we set them down. Here we go. Y'all make these calls. And,
so those positions would kind of be like an ISA, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
An inside, okay. Yeah.
ISA, yep. Hourly people, and they would dial for dollars. And if they wanted somebody that wanted refinance, they went to me. If they wanted somebody that wanted to sell their home, they went to my buddy. And we just ran this thing. And we did that in a 900 square foot office. We started in Folsom. And it did really well, actually. And we're like, hey, we should probably expand. Like, we should do more. Like, we only had enough room, though, for 3 desks in our front room. We thought, man, if we could just like quadruple this, we can make like 4 times the money, right? In math in your head, that's how you add, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, all right, cool. So we were leaving one Friday night from our office, and we had walking down the office, and the property manager happened to be walking the same floor, and she come walking out of this corner unit, and we're like, oh, hey, what's going on? She goes, oh, hey, what's that right there? She goes, oh, we're just finishing the touches on our last corner unit here, and it's going to be going up for lease soon. I'm like, oh, really? She goes, yeah, it's nice. You want to see it? I'm like, sure. So went in there, walked in there to this beautiful corner suite. It was like dialed in 4,000 square feet. It was 900 we had. 4,000 is what we looked at. She's like, you guys interested in it? And we're like, maybe. And so he's like, we'll go talk about it. Went home that night. We chopped some numbers up. And again, we really had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah, for sure. You're just sending it. Yeah.
We're just like, okay, if we do this and we do that, we hire this, we hire that, we should increase this too, and should increase that too, and it all should work out. Yeah, that should be in a book for dummies, like starting your own business for dummies. And so we got us, like, we said, sure, we'll take it. And we ended up finishing off the entire office. But here's a real heavy thing that you don't realize, that every time you turn around, somebody wants a $3,000 check, $5,000 check, another $3,000 check. The internet guy, oh, I got to pull wires from across the hall. That's only gonna be $5,000. Okay.
Oh, man.
I got to put a new server in. Oh, it's just gonna be like $5,000. Down to the refrigerator in the break room, the sweet and lows. I mean, your boardroom chairs, like your last plant and your last picture wall. People don't think about all of that.
Oh yeah.
And by the time we were done, we spent well over $150,000 in just stuff being right. Okay. So we're already in this business model, and we started running it. And then we just started hiring again, more ISAs. I'm like, we're going to fill it. We had this huge room this time, huge room. We just lined the sucker up full desk, 20 desks. Wow. So we hired 20 ISAs to come in and start dialing for dollars. And we paid them all $15 an hour and gave them spiffs and bonuses. If they actually gave us a liable lead that turned into something, they'd get a bonus, right? Yeah. I had 20 ISAs, if you want to call them that today. I had 5 realtors and 4 loan officers, myself, my partner, and 2 front desk people in the front. That's how big we end up getting.
Wow.
And
now, what year is this around to? What time? Where are we at now in the story?
2005, 6, 5 or 6, yeah, 5 or 6, yeah. Right before our lovely crash.
This is why I asked. Yes, I figured we were getting there.
A little unrealistic life, how life was going. It was like, yeah, it was a different time back then. I mean, it was wheelbarrows of money. It was unrealistic times. We were just living lives that we probably should never lived. If you guys have watched the Big Short movie with Brad Pitt, that's really what it was like too.
Wow.
Strippers buying 6 houses, no income, no asset loans. I used to bring in cocktail napkins with people's incomes on it. And that's how you basically do your debt to income ratio. All right. It was crazy. It was nuts. It was insane.
Crazy. That is crazy.
If you had a 700 FICO score, I could literally give you a $500,000 home. I mean, and there used
Regardless
to
of
be,
income, right?
regardless of income, yeah. It was like, because it was as a no income, no asset loan. You could have zero like proof of income and zero proof of assets. If you had a 700 FICO score, we'd make the rest up.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
see, this is, to where we're at now. Things have changed so dramatic. And that's why when people compare us to '08, that phrase that you said alone, right? Just how you got loans approved should give a pretty good understanding that we're not in that process of, history, right?
Not even close.
Yeah.
You're not even close. We're not similar at all in any ways at all in the markets now of 07, 08 to today. I mean, number one, people had their houses leveraged out to the tilt. They were like 97, 98% loan to values. They refinanced them like 3 or 4 times and took out, because of the accelerated growth, we were accelerating 27 to 28% a month.
A month.
Wow. A month. I understand you guys listen out there. A month. You know what the average is in the national? 7% is your national per year. Per year. And we were doing 28% a month. People were buying brand new houses, and it was a lottery. You had to go and pick numbers to win a lottery ticket to even go put an offer on a property. And once you got accepted, you put a down payment on it. The house was built. It would take a normal of, almost 8 to 10 weeks to build a house out in a tract home. But by the time you got your keys in 10 weeks, you already had $150,000 in equity in your home.
Wow. So every client on the loan end, you're already, setting them up for that refi, setting them up for the refi. Yep.
And like, oh, hey, take some cash out. You could pay off some bills. You could buy some new 20-inch rims with spinners on it. You can buy flat plasma TVs. You can go buy jet skis. You can buy boats. You know what? I mean, you sold the dream. And guess what? When the market will return, you'll be fine. You can refinance again. That's what we're telling everybody. We can refinance again. You can, change your rate. And we were selling adjustable rate mortgages like they were candy at a birthday party. And these were neg-am loans too. Anybody doesn't know what neg-am, negative amortization loans, were even worse. Those were pick-up pay loans where you were paying basically 1%. 1% is what you're paying off that base rate, 1%. And the rest of it becomes deferred. And that's why they call it a negative amortization loan. So the difference in your payments that you're not paying defers to the back end of your loan. And all of a sudden it starts to negative amortize, which means if you bought a home for $300,000 and your payment was at a 1% was like $650, but a full PI and TI, principal, interest, tax, insurance payment was like $3,000, but you're paying $650. That difference was all thrown in the back end of your loan for 5 years. Wow. And then we used to qualify people actually off of the $650 a month payment, which is even more crazier. Because then when that 5-year mark came up, if you all watched The Big Short, when everything started to short out, that's what happened. The 5-year marks were coming up on everybody's arm. The payments came to call, and now you got to pay a $3,000 a month payment. You've been paying $650 a month for 5 years. And like, talk about sticker shock.
Yeah. Yeah. But everyone, when they're signing that loan at that time, they're probably assuming too, oh yeah, I'll have it figured out, or oh, I'll do this in the future, or whatever, I'll deal with it later. Right.
Yeah. Rates will turn around. You come back, you can extend this arm for 5 years. And guess what? In 5 years, the rates will be great. We'll put you in a 30-year fix and you'll be able to be in a real comfortable payment, or we'll throw you another 7-1 arm, right?
Yeah.
Interest only or something, right? Yeah. And it is the way the game is played. But, it's not about even pointing fingers. The market did what it did, and we all became victim of that. And so it is what it was, right? So 07, 8, 9, we all lost everything I had. I mean, I went from having a 6-bedroom home to actually at that time moving in with one of my ex-girlfriends with her brother into a house into 1 bedroom, like a room, a single room. Talk about humbling experience. You're up here, MC Hammer, man, bumps and the humps, and then all of a sudden you're down here. And you know what? A lot of people really lost it. I obviously had a spell of it too. I'm not going to lie, because I'm a human being. But I also remember where I came from. I came from nothing. So to go back to nothing, it was a humbling experience for sure. but
Yeah.
it made me better of who I need to be and to come back as a better person. Um, and I always told God, if just give me one more chance to do this right, you know?
For
So
sure.
yeah, I did. And so at that point, still hadn't even done real estate, by the way. So I fulfilled my Frank picture, just FYI, those listening and following the story.
Yeah.
I
And
ended up
did
owning my own
you
mortgage
feel
company.
inside too? Did you finally have those revelations to yourself, like, oh my God, like at that moment when you did hit that pinnacle, you had the 6-bedroom house, you had the huge office. Did you feel accomplished in that? Were you like, hey, I did it, you know, man, like I had my eyes set on that and I knocked it off the charts? Or was it
No,
not that?
you know,
No.
it's
Okay.
so as crazy as this is that, again, consciously, I don't think I ever made Frank as like this poster on my wall, like on a vision board, like I was trying to reach Frank's life my whole life. It
Mm,
was not there consciously.
okay.
Obviously, it was a subconscious thing in my ball. I was in tune with the universe through my law of attraction, and that's what was taking me there. But I remember one situation. We actually had a grand opening for our office. We got in the 4,000 square foot office. We had it all done. Everything was done. The last picture was up on the wall. The last plant was by the front door. And we had this welcoming part, like, you know, cut the ribbon, red ribbon, you know, to our office fine. Cause, you know, we had a 900 square foot office. We weren't really going to celebrate about that. But this was like, okay, we reached the pinnacle and we actually were doing well and was fully staffed. And my partner actually, his parents showed up, right? And he's like, his parents like, oh my God, son, so proud of you. You did amazing. Like, look what you accomplished, right? And, you know, I come from this environment where, like, at that point, you know, my mom had died when I was 15. My dad was pretty much a 2x4. I mean, he was non-existent my entire life. So, which is why I think my drive, my why was always to prove him wrong, kind of
Mm,
thing, right? That
that's
fire was
powerful.
survival, and the drive was to prove, because my dad never really thought much of me and didn't think I
Mm,
was going to be much of anything. And so yeah, so we're in this situation where we're at this welcoming party, this grand opening, and his parents are there, like, oh my God, good job. And I'm sitting in my office thinking, oh my God, we did it. We did it. We're here. We did this. And to what you're saying, I'll say, yeah, for a moment there, I thought about, all right, yeah. But it was like, it wasn't fulfilling. And and it was because there was like nobody there for me to celebrate it with.
mm,
You know, like my parents weren't there to sit there and say, oh, congratulations, son. You did a great job. We're so proud of you. Look what you've accomplished, right? And that's all
yeah.
I actually ever wanted, to be honest, which is why my drive was that way from the beginning,
That's powerful, bro.
right? The validation. So, no, I didn't. At that point in my life, when I reached that level, I honestly didn't sit there and be like, oh my God, woo, I made it. It wasn't none of that. You know, I just like, I was proud of what I did. I definitely had done way more than anybody in my entire family, all of them probably combined together.
Mm,
And, you know, so I celebrated that win for as long as I could until the day came when we like pretty much we have no more money. Like, we cannot continue to
wow.
run this shop and we got to close doors. We can't afford to keep this place. Um, and that's what happened, right? Liquidate, liquidate,
Wow.
liquidate.
Yeah.
Um,
And so,
so
yeah, you go from there, right? Now that market crashes, obviously, you said you lose the space, right? I'm assuming you parted ways with that specific partner, or maybe you
yeah,
kept it together. So you're at your girlfriend's house in this 1-bedroom apartment. Did you sit at the whiteboard then? Because I know a lot of your story, right? You just kept on going out, opening the door. Okay, I'm jumping. Man, I love how many times you've jumped. And what's cool about your story is a lot of times in the times that you have jumped, I mean, I'm sure there's parts where, right, you fell down and all that, but your parachute keeps opening, man. I mean, you keep catching
yeah.
good breaks to the next step. What was your next plan after that?
Uh, Lots of alcohol. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It was not a moment of like party time, and yeah,
Mm,
I was absolutely depressed. I don't even want to put that even out there like it's not and pretend like it wasn't. Yeah,
mm,
you go from a certain high for a certain time to that. It's a humbling experience, but it is depressing. It's depressing. I was depressed for months on end.
mm,
I didn't even get out of bed, didn't do anything, just stare at a wall, which was not my style. You know, I had been running 100 miles an hour my entire life. And at that particular moment, I actually hit the brakes and was like, "Erp." So yeah, like all of the vision and law of attraction and, you know, what you think about comes about. I was all blah, 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 blah. I don't want to hear that right now
mm,
because I'm like in the most worst spot of my life. But you know, I managed to dig my way out of that, and I actually went and did a job for 2 seconds. I went and actually went and got a job at Home Depot.
okay.
Funny story. when I got a job at Home Depot, I was like, you know what? I can't do this. Maybe I should just go to a job at Home Depot because I knew construction, right? My fallback.
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
construction. I can go back and I could be a salesman over there, make good money. I got skills. I could build shit. I could do all. I'll sell it. So I did. I went to work at Home Depot. They hired me too, and I was like, okay. I lasted 2 weeks.
Wow.
2 weeks there, and I was like in the bathroom ready to hang myself. I'm like, I cannot absolutely. I was like, I stood in the mirror. I asked myself, what are you doing with your life? Like, if I look back and play the role back, the reel back, well, I was living a life that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That I built that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what am I doing? Why am I working at this Home Depot? Why am I in this bathroom stall right now? What am I doing staring at this mirror and talking to myself? Like all those things rush through your head, right?
Right.
And I'm like, I gotta get out of here. This is not me. And so that was like a wake-up call for me, like, all right, this is not my life. I am much more talented in this. And so yeah, I left. And then actually at that point, I just started reintroducing. I got back into real estate. I just no more mortgages. I just did straight real estate, and I actually started working for a personal buddy of mine out in Folsom, who kind of taught me the ropes. I mean, I already knew the contracts then because we had already been messing with them for years. So essentially, I know the contracts, know how to do all that stuff. And so I'm like, all right. Again, I went to work with him because he was like, oh, I'll give you 100%. I'll only charge you $500 a deal. Okay. Seems like a steal, right? Like in your mind, 100%, only $500, pay as you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
for an entry, for figuring it out. Yeah. That seems like great off the cuff. Yeah. Until you start doing a lot of units.
Or here's the other little smart note behind that. You get what you pay for. Yeah. Reality is like he had zero time for me. Time for me. Obviously, he wasn't paying anything for me to be there. So he was going to give me no time either. So I really had nobody around. It was just myself in that office. So it was kind of lonely. There was no community. There was no collaboration. It was like blah, blah. So a buddy of mine said, hey, you need to come over work with me. So I went to work at a local brokerage called Lion Real Estate. It's a huge family-owned one out here in town. They managed to grow very vastly large, independent, about 1,200 agents in town. Wow. So I went to work for them. Impressive. And my buddy Jeff Pennington, loved him to death. He's an amazing guy. Worked there, and my business doubled. It started to really grow and thrive. Being around a different environment, it thrived because I was in a different place. But then, I honestly outgrew that model really quickly. I had this aha experience on a Saturday sitting in the office. My desk used to face the elevator, and I was sitting there, and there happened to be an agent there. I won't name names because probably anybody listening to this probably know her name, but I think she might have sold Noah's Ark, just being honest. And that's how old she was. And I'm thinking she'd come walking in, and how ironic the situation was that she had actually gotten a knee surgery done, so she had to be on a walker, right? Mm-hmm. So she's using this walker with an oxygen tank on it, with an oxygen mask on, and it's a Saturday, and she's walking out of the elevator with her thing, and again, she didn't really need the walker only because of operation, but it just fit the situation very tightly.
Yeah, for sure.
And I saw her walk out, and she's like, you know what? She's telling her clients, you guys just go over there and you go sit in that room right there, and I'll be right there, and we'll write this contract up for you guys, and we'll get it over for you. And all of a sudden, man, I just had this, holy shit, is that going to be me? Am I going to be in a walker like that old, telling my clients to go in there and sign a documents? I'm like, man, I got to do something different. It's kind of the epiphany of me when I was early on realizing, man, I can't swing this hammer forever. This is crazy. Am I going to be this, excuse me for saying this, old person, seasoned? Let's use that word, seasoned person.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I got to make some moves. This is got to be different. I started thinking differently then. I started thinking how can I leverage and scale? Because if you're not leveraging and scaling anything you're doing at the particular moment, you are just working a job.
Yeah. And
that's all it will ever be, is a job. So keep that in mind, those who are listening. If you need to figure out how to leverage and scale whatever you are doing. And so I'm like, all right, that's what I figured out. And how do I leverage and scale in real estate? Well, ownership is where it's at. We all know that. I just put a reel about that yesterday, right? Ownership has its privileges, always has, always will. And it pays to be at the top, because now you can turn your leverage, which currently was time for money, trading time for money, to trading people for money. That's what it was about. And so that's what I did when I had my own mortgage company, right? I had tons of people working for me, and I leveraged that. So I had to get back into that mind space again. But the company I was at didn't support that model. It didn't even facilitate it in any way, shape, or form. So I got to make a move. So I actually joined my local board of realtors out here in Placer County, and started doing that. I'm like, why not? Why not? It's
Yeah.
voluntary. I don't get paid for it, but like I just need to get around a lot of people and start building some amazing relationships because this business is based off relationships. But it's funny if you talk to people, realtors, and they say, why would I go talk to more realtors for? That doesn't get me business. That's what everybody says. But I did it anyways, right? I went and did this, and I jumped in it, started doing things. So I was board director for 6 years for our local association. I was a board director for my state, for California too.
Wow.
And I did that. And that was actually a very interesting tour for sure. I learned a lot about the kinds of works of real estate and how it works in this country, our state.
A lot of logistics and legal
yeah. and politics.
Yeah.
And so I did something where I joined one of the committees called the YPN group, which is Young Professional Network Group, right? And I actually spearheaded that in 2013, and I did really well with it. I actually created the very first largest networking mixer in the entire country.
Wow.
Ever. It was called Aloha Nights.
Okay.
And, it was at a pool at a local casino here in town. And we had it went for 11 years straight.
Wow.
And, we had upwards of about 1,000 people and raised $50,000 to $75,000 in one night from this event.
Holy smokes.
So it is the largest, still to this day, largest networking mixer in the state for NAR.
Wow.
All over the country, right? So I built that and I established it, and I actually did that by myself because nobody believed it could be done. So I single-handedly designed that from scratch and built that myself. And so Keller Williams saw that, and they came sniffing me out. And they're like, you know what? We really saw what you did with that. It was pretty awesome. We want you to come work for us and run one of our market centers. I'm like, all right.
And there's that opportunity that you were looking for. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. Well, it came with a nice, very highly fat 6-figure salary. I'm like, cool. Bonus off the office. Okay. And we're going to teach you all the things about running the business that Keller Williams way, which I had my own way, which, to be honest, it was like from a Captain Crunch box. We were figuring out as we go. This was like Keller Williams. Gary Keller had it already mapped out. It was divided. It was actually cool. So I did that. I did that for 3.5 years, which if you understand the statistics for a Keller Williams team leader, the life expectancy is 18 months.
I was going to say 18 months to 2 years. Yeah.
So I left at 3.5 years of that, and I learned a lot. And I learned a lot what I didn't want to do, and I learned a lot where I was at. And I tell myself now where I'm sitting at today that all the things I did was actually preparing me for where I'm at today.
I was just going to say, watching you build or hearing you build, the largest, NAR or, get together, right? An actual mixer. It really helped you not only with your leadership skills, but being able to, be an influencer at a high capacity, which has ultimately helped Team Freedom here, grow to where it's at today too. So.
Yeah, a lot of the same similar things, right? That people skills, relationship skills. But then I took a lot of the things that, and hands down, I think Keller Williams has an amazing model for a brick and mortar environment. It has an amazing model. They're the only company that really has that run your biz like a business. So I took a lot of that. And so I was done with that 3.5 years. I did no more franchise. Some of this done. And then I did get bought in quickly for a short minute to an Intero franchise, which is a Berkshire Hathaway. Okay. And I was like, 6 months, I'll just give you 6 months. Didn't work. I was done out quickly. And then, my great friend Brent Gove gives me a call. In 2016, I left Keller Williams, man. I'm like, what? I had known Brent for well over a decade, and I was like, okay, I'm definitely curious, my friend. Like, I need to hear what's going on. So I did, I heard the story. I was sitting in the Starbucks. He shared me what's going on the EXP model. And I was like, 2 seconds. I put the laptop lid down. I was like, I'm in. Where do I sign? I'm in, because I was actually ultimately my other secondary option was I was going to go start my own company with a buddy of mine who was a commercial real estate broker. Mm-hmm. And we were going to go do our own thing, kind of raise our own flag and build it by ourselves. And I was like, okay, I could do that too. I know how to do it. I could build a real estate company from scratch. I have all the blueprint. And so I'm like, all right. But then when I just saw the EXP model, I was like, oh my God, remember those 2 things I talked about earlier? Yeah. Leverage and scalability. This is the most highest used leverage and scalability you'll ever get in a real estate model in the world. Mm. And if you don't understand that, it's probably because you've never ran a business before. Mm-hmm. I'm just telling you right now, you cannot get a scalable, more leveraged model in real estate than EXP, and that is the truth.
Facts.
and it's not even me just talking like I read it in a book. I've lived this shit. I've done it. So,
and I love that portion of what you're saying, right? Is because you have validated a ton of different market spaces. You've seen what it's like to be able to scale something and grow it, take the leap of faith, get the office space, get the team, get the ISAs, from a lending component, from then the real estate component. You've done the partnerships and ventured out with people. You've, then went off and did I'm going to hang my license under somebody, have them teach me the ropes at let's just call it 100% brokerages, right? Then you're like, man, I can't do that. I got to go over here to this avenue. And then you jump from that. And, we hear this a lot through different industry, leaders, that they're constantly jumping from one ship to the other ship, and they're trying to find this piece that EXP does have.
Yeah. I always hear a lot of times people have their excuse of like, I don't want to be known as that agent that just jumps everywhere. I don't want to be known as that agent that's, you look at my resume and I got 50 different places on there. I'm like, what? The reality is, if it's 50 different places though, that took you 10 feet farther than before, then that was the best decisions you ever made.
Come on.
If you're jumping 50 different ships, but you're really not going anywhere, and now actually maybe you're going backwards, then you made the wrong decision.
That's right.
Right? In that scenario, most realtors, let's be honest, you're jumping ship because you think the brokerage is what's wrong, but really it's you. You're what's wrong. But you have that different mindset. I was coming from a place that I was eagerly seeking more leverage, more scalability in my business, and how can I best get used to that? And I wasn't going to stop until I found it.
That's right.
And if it meant me going to 50 brokerages or 50 different platforms to find it, that's why it took Edison 1,000 times to figure out how to do a light bulb, but it only took one time to do it, right?
For sure. And at the end of the day, a lot of those mixed beliefs that people have, ultimately, people are hiring you for you. They want to work with you because they want to work with you. It doesn't matter if you're at, this realty or that realty or whatever. I mean, that's really what it is at the end of the day, right?
It is.
That's a limited belief too that we carry in this industry, which does have a say, because we're so taught to, stick it out and stay with that company and build up a resume and all that, right? I mean, that limited mindset there is something that we all struggle with at some point.
It holds us back in so many ways, and which is why you see people do not succeed, right?
Heck yeah.
So we're like our own worst critic, or our own worst enemy. But yeah, so now I've been here at EXP for 6 years, and you know what? I've been able to leverage and build this model at EXP larger than I've ever been, even if I went and built my own space. Like, I thought about it that sitting the other day, like, wow, if I had actually went to take door left and went left to the door, right, and took that spot of starting my own place with my buddy, the brokerage, doing commercial and residential, I would have never been to the scale and leverage as high as I am here at EXP. Like, never in a million years. So
that's awesome. Now, what would you say to somebody that is maybe sitting on the fence right now? They're weighing out all their options. They hear your story and they're like, yeah, man, like, I'm actually in that process of building out the franchise or building out the space, but this seems like I need to tune in more. I need to listen more. How would you advise someone to maybe even look at this process of what we have at EXP?
Well, number one, if you really are a true, and I use that very loosely, a true business owner, let's set that stage first, right? Because I mean, I think we're likely to say that every realtor thinks they're a business owner. And I'm sorry, I'm not here to be mean or opinionated, but realtors are not business owners, man. Let's just call that what it is. Your broker is the business owner. You're the employee of it with a really freaking cool ass schedule is what you are. Right. That's what you are. So if we talk about it from a business perspective, if you're a true business owner, you're open-minded. You're always on the move. You're swivel. You're looking for better things. Like I said, I was always looking for what I need to find. If it took me going and lifting 50 rocks to get it, then I was going to get there. That's what I had to find. So if you're relentless in finding what you're looking for, first you got to let go of your ego. First you got to be open-minded. And then if you see it, you got to look about people that use that terminology. I want to work smarter, not harder, right? Everybody and their mom says that. And everybody says, I really want to do that. But nobody really ever shows they're really trying to do that. It's like, it's like the shovel, digging a pool on bare ground. The shovel, the trusty shovel, has been around for centuries. And it will very easily dig a hole. Not easily. It will dig a hole. But it's going to require a lot of effort. So it works. It's reliable. And I can get the job done. But I could go down to River City Rentals and go get me an excavator that has a 48-inch bucket on it and I can have that pool dug in 6 hours.
Mm,
Right.
that's right.
So when you're thinking about this, like, all right, I'm running my brokerage, I want to do this stuff, I want to do that stuff, and all these like great visionary ideas of what you want to build out. And then you look at EXP and like, how does that fit in there? Well, it does. It takes every piece of leverage, every piece of scalability, every overhead, every liability, every expense, condenses it, it morphs it, it makes it more tangible for you to actually run a very successful business model.
It does. Yeah. And not even just state if you're in one state, but multiple states and multiple countries. You get to have a brokerage within almost everywhere in the world, it feels like.
100%. And there's that scalability that you don't have that with a place if you were to go open your own brokerage. There's so much more work involved in opening your own spot. It just doesn't make sense anymore. It's almost like saying, why do you want to get your broker's license? I don't understand either. But hey, everybody has their own things they want to do and reach those plateaus. Maybe you just want to get it so you get your wall and say you did it. And I respect that. Right. But if you're thinking about you want to get a broker's license with the intention of really leveraging that and building out something, man, you still must watch VHS videotapes and on your VCR, right?
I love it.
On your 18-inch box TV. It's just what it is, just being real.
It's real talk with Chris and Ross, man. I mean, we got to keep it real.
Oh, yeah. So that's me in a nutshell, buddy.
Man, well, honestly, what I love about your story is just the aspect of one, you really have honed in on the ability to seek every opportunity to its fullest. And just by listening to your story, what I appreciate about it the most is your willingness to go all in on yourself and to believe in the others around you, right? Like a lot of your experiences, man, I mean, you have put a lot of trust in believing this can not only work for me, but I see that it's working in this group effort, and you've partnered with people and you really have built a tremendous career within the real estate world. So just, man, hat is off to you, my friend. And I love hearing this too thoroughly. Now when I call you the Japanese Cowboy, it's going to have even more meaning, right? So thank you so much for being transparent and really taking the time. I know everyone else on here is probably just enjoying it as much as myself. So thank you.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. Well, we're always keeping it real. And I look forward to our episode number 16 next week, same time, same channel, with our Real Talk with Chris and Ross. Thank you for the audience for listening. Have a great day.
Bye.